Okay, so let's get started. So today we are going to be working on building a new deck for ABC format. Here is the comprehensive rules off the Force of Will TCG website. So this just generally goes over how to play this format and what differences it has compared to the normal game. But what we're mainly looking for here is this main section of setting up and constructing a new deck. And mainly what I want down here is section 202, that contains all of the rules for your main deck. So I'm allowed to have up to 4 ruler cards in the deck that cannot be basic rulers and cannot have the Arcana race. Yes. As well as my deck must contain exactly 21 or less cards and 15 cards with total cost 2. So here is my main deck. Here I got my 4 rulers and then all of my 1-drops or less. And then I have all of my 2-drops and then my 3 or more. A little near the bottom where I've done my recent edits, the organization's kind of fallen apart. And these cards here in red are because normally a deck cannot have both tails and villains, but in ABC they can. So I am allowed to run cards like Rudra, which are the GOAT for early game knockouts for ABC format, as well as cards like Galileo, who's a late game powerhouse, if for tails and villains. So this is my main deck I've been using, and on the YouTube channel and in the stream from earlier this week with all the highlights, this is the deck I was playing for that. And so I do want to build a new deck, so for that I will be coming over here. So to start, we will be doing a Water and Darkness deck, which requires using this Arcana ruler here, or Hagman of Murky Waters. He has the standard judgment cost of 1 water, 1 dark, and 1 open. Nice. His Convoke is 1 water, 1 darkness. The Convoke being the ability that allows me to put rulers from my hand into field. And then the stipulation of all cards in this deck must be water, darkness, or both water and darkness to be allowed into the deck. So just all the standard stuff. When he enters, he can put a stone into the field rested or search my deck for a ruler. So this is our baseline starting. I do have this set up for 1 costs, 2 costs, and 3 plus, and the rulers. Because going back to this, we have to have exactly 60 cards. Hertz. And then, so we're allowed 4 rulers, 21 or less, 15 2 or more. At least 15 cards with total cost 2, and at least 10 with 3 or more. And then that's how we're going to keep track here. It keeps track on the numbers. And then for stone deck, we're allowed to have between 12 to 20 stones in our stone deck. When looking over the new Arcana cards, because this is where it lists every Arcana ruler and sub-ruler that they use. The new cards that got printed, like Doubt the Priest of Truths and Despoina, the Heir of the Seven Seas, also got printed, that interact and gain benefits as long as you have a Water or Darkness /ruler, respectively, that has the Arcana race. And seeing as how he does, these would be good cards to add to our 3 plus section. Despoina here, the Heir of the Seven Seas, has the effect at the very bottom where each player expels all spells they control. And spells is pretty much all non-Magic Stone, non-J-Ruler entities. Also is a way of putting that, because J-Rulers aren't spells, neither are stones, but every other card once played is considered a spell, so I believe that's how that would work. Her God's Art is essentially just spells and abilities you control cannot be targeted, which is always nice for 1 blue. and she can stack up to 6 non-magic stone cards from all graveyards, removed areas. So that is an effect that just is also good disruption for, especially if someone's about to contract an Asuka, and when she's targeting those that she's going to be bringing into play, you flash this in, grab them all instead. Good way to really play around. Good response card. Doubt here prevents all damage that would be dealt to him from sources you don't control. So he has some like pseudo eternal to this damage. He has Mythic and Bane, and any damage that he would take, your opponent loses that much life. So that's going to be whichever person's to your left or your right, and you get to choose. And then the text he gains from having the Arcana Ruler is that end of turn, you draw a card, you lose 300 life, and you get a 1/1 Darkness Skeleton token into the field, which is always really fun. So with seeing how we have access to this card, I might be wanting to do a kind of token build with this deck. And token build is one of my favorite ways to play, and I know Darkness does have access to quite a few different types. And specifically, Water and Darkness does have access to a lot of like Eternal tokens and Eternal cards. So let's start narrowing down our look. I do want to look for token cards, but I think we should start with looking at which of the rulers we're going to want to put into the deck. Because a lot of times you can just build around your ruler selection, because you can always search your rulers out with the Arcana, or some rulers can actually just be searched because of their race. Typhon is an order ruler, and with how they buffed order to actually be valid, as when it flips back over, he doesn't instantly expel himself, and order can't be canceled. It's a way of just cheating in really good cards. I feel like you have to play Typhon in this format. Because really the starting costs here at the very bottom don't matter to play him, as starting things do not happen. But mainly why Typhon is here is for just being able to cheat things out with his ability to Revolution Order and his Force Command Infinity, if there are any cards we want to put into the deck with it that have Force Infinity. The only other effect that he has on him that would actually be impactful to this deck is you cannot pay life in any way. So pay life cards would not affect us. New rulers that they just put into the game that specifically are in ABC decks, like Garhelm here, the Undead Reagent. You cannot have non-skeleton, the start of game triggers like the zombie and skeleton restrictions don't matter, but the end of turn put a name, Demonic Dead or Niflheim, from your hand or graveyard into the field could be good. The end of your opponent's turn, since we have 2 opponents, this could be good. Put the top 2 cards of your deck into graveyard. I guess if we want to run Garhelm here, we could run in some of the newer depth mechanics that say if your deck's down to 15 cards, they gain other bonuses. You do have the Evil Dead ability, which will just make you lose some life if per the cost of the card, which isn't that bad. Interestingly, that is life loss, not paying the life. If it said that you paid X, where X is the cost plus 3, then it would Typhon, you just wouldn't be paying that amount. But this is life loss, so it will actually still go through. I think this would be a solid base to start with these 2 and to see where we can go from there. The other one that was recently added was Undine here. So she's the other new ruler that's added in the ABC dual decks. So we could look to adding wizards as a nice thematic addition to the deck. can definitely look to see what all water wizard type resonators there are, especially in this color combo. We can go from there. But the fact that she's also taxing things to play from the hand is interesting. There's initial cost of playing to expel cards from your hand to play a non-resonator spell. That could be detrimental since we do want to play a lot of graveyard and remnant cards. Let's add another zone and just name this the maybes. Yeah, and we'll shove Undine into the maybe section. Now, I'd love to add something like Belial, especially if we want to do token strats, because he buffs tokens, but specifically like Fallen Angel tokens. But since we're running blue Water and Darkness, we cannot run him since he is a Light and Darkness card. Alice in Wonderland could be very good for this build, because she allows you to play any amount of any colors of will. So you could Judgment her with only paying one water or one darkness, and you get a 700/700 ruler into play. Yeah, but also cards like the Ragnarok Stone, which we will have access to, that allows us to tap for any color, can be used here to cheat an extra color out. So you can use her for her wind, fire, or light effects also by using the Ragnarok Stone. But ultimately, being able to convoke her in for 2 and then for 1 more stone, get her to flip into discard something or draw you more cards, gives you that little bit of hand advantage. If you want to use the Mooge Dart to give her swiftness and flying till end of turn, that ultimately could net you a free winning crystal very early on. Because winning crystals the victory crystals are gained after dealing 600 damage or more, and Alice being at 700 does let you cheat that damage in. We would need 1 more ruler to add. Stein cards would be fun to add, but probably detrimental in this. So like, I would love to add some of the original order rulers in, like Loki here. But Loki is a water, darkness, and wind ruler, so he is not valid to be added to this deck. Because he is not just water and darkness. Typhon had to be entirely changed because he was previously all 5 colors, and now he's only darkness. Beatrice actually might be valid to run here, because her starting ability to limit the amount of cards in your hand and your deck are not going to be played into effect here. She still has her light and her 1 water, 1 darkness effect. And then added to that, we can go ahead here and use her null effect at the end of the turn, draw a card. So if you don't have cards in your hand, you trigger null. And so if you do not have cards in your hand at the end of that turn, you will draw a card. Especially if we play a very reaction heavy deck, or a lot of quick cast in the deck, then we can, on our opponent's turns or on the opposite player from us, just play out our quick cast or our hand, be back to 0, and at the end of their turn draw, go to the next player, play that card out, and then at the end of the turn draw. You can also combo her God's Art. If you have no cards in your hand, draw 2 cards to just get back into the game. So if we're at 0 cards and we need stuff in hand, we can flip Arcana Ruler, search our deck for a Beatrice, convoke Beatrice into the fields, and then use her God's Art to draw 2 cards immediately. And if you Judgment her, she also gets to bounce cards your opponent controls back to their hand. So she can really help get you back into this. And the fact that she's a 500, 800 flying ruler, that you can run the Alice, the Little Red, the Pure Stone, call Water or Darkness like you're going to anyways, and then use its effect to buff her 200 attack, putting her over the 600 attack threshold to be able to win a victory crystal with an attack. So she would be very much a get back in the game ruler to grab. Okay, so it looks like we'll build around Alice as just a quick flash into the field, especially if we get the Moojdart Stone to get victory crystals, because once you have 3 victory crystals, you win the game. Garnhelm here can help us with his Evil Dead ability to play cards out of the grave, just filter into the grave. Typhon Order makes us able to play Resonators that are unchaseable. That'll just force them into the field and instantly give us the ability to win. So cards like Doubt, we just get to order him into the fields. And then we have a J/Ruler with Mythic and Bane. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to him by sources we don't control. And just deal damage to our opponent that way. And since he would then be considered a ruler, if he's able to deal 600 combat damage to our opponent, then we would also win a crystal. That'd probably be much harder to get to do, but we can definitely work on it. The fact that he also has Evil Dead goes into Garnhelm's mechanic, where for his Judgment we need to have at least 4 cards with the printed ability Evil Dead in public zones, so on the field or graveyard removed from game. And Doubt does fix into that. So we have 6 out of 60 cards picked out. Now we get to go in the fun. We're going to set it to tokens. And I want only the selected colors. The Sea Monsters, Bioluminescent Eggs, does have a depth effect, so if we get low on cards, we can use it. It has Remnant, so that would work with Garnhelm, who keeps wanting to put cards in the graveyard. It has some tokens, so we can definitely work with that, especially when we put Altar into this deck. Sacrificial Altar. The Sacrificial Altar then will let us offer up some of these tokens to really play out and have some fun here. Untouchable, so it can't be countered. This is probably going to be a very good addition for this deck. Alvarez, the fact that it negs non-darkness J/Resonators, and that can affect everyone at the table, not just your 2 opponents, but the opponent kitty corner to you. And when it enters, you get 2 darkness vampires with flying. Always decent to have. We will not have a Werebeast, so this will not gain Quick Guess and Untouchable. The fishing spot here, where exit total number of chance multiplied by 4. You get to pay 2 and then pay Y. Draw a card, then put Y plus 2 4/4 darkness sea monsters into the field. That could be very good, especially with cards like Sacrificial Altar. So we just get all the bodies onto the field at the end of our opponent's turn. Comes to our turn, we can swing with them all for damage, and then start sacking them all to the altar to then force out higher cost cards from our deck, especially ones that could have swiftness. If Solarization should probably be wanting to add here, especially because these allow us to drop our opponent's life with Stein's Fragments. So any cards we have outside of the game we can put to the bottom of our deck, and then we'll lower the cost of this card. Then we'll get 5/4/4 Darkness Ethereal Gear Resonators into the field, and then we can banish any one of those resonators to make our opponent lose 200 life, especially if one of our opponents is getting low on health, like the player before us who's swinging at us. If their opponents got them very low, we can play this and just have 1,000 damage sitting on the board. So if they're going for lethal on our opponent, we can sack them and just make our opponent lose that way, so we win the game. Stein's Graveyard could be a fun one if we really want to try spamming out these ethereal tokens. But since this format only requires one of each card, it would be very difficult to keep getting more of them. Malefic Tree Ethereal, since he spawns 2 tokens, but at the end of turn they're gone, it is good. It is, and it can help us for sacrificial plays, because if we're going to go for a token build, we're also going to want to play a lot of incarnation cards, like Cthulhu's, who can utilize these tokens to cheat out bigger cost things. So this definitely is a good play, but something like the Graveyard just will not be useful enough for us. Fish Drive is at very worst a 1-drop 6/6 Waterfish, and at the best it is 6/1/1 Waterfish Resonators. With Alvarez out, that would kill them all instantly if we got the 6. But if we only got the 2 3/3s, it would be fine. Or the 6/6. I feel like this is just a really good way to spam out a lot of tokens quickly for sacrificial moves. Bone Dragon's always good, because it's just going to give us a big flyer, and then per Darkness Resonator that was put into the graveyard this turn, we get that many more 4/4 zombies out onto the field, which is always helpful. Because runes can be ran in the main deck in ABC format, we get the Dark Spectral Resonators with Swiftness, Precision into the field. It's a number of bone controls. So we would just be able to just start slamming into our opponent with a good bit of tokens. So 2-drop, we would need our opponent to have at least 3 Resonators to make this valid. Yes, hello Bird, thanks for the boop. Definitely an option for the deck. Good enough to go in the maybe section. So Spectral Rush is essentially a Wolf's Rain for less cost, and it's a variable based on your opponent's Resonators. So that's all the token generation we really have access to. We can go ahead and add Life Sapper, which did just recently get banned in Wanderer format. Same with Life Sapper Chrono Gear for being a little too strong. The Swarm of Spiders, yes, we'll never really get it quick S and untouchable. But it does give all spiders Bane. It's a good token builder late game, and it's a good will sink. So we can add that to our 1 costs. Next, I'm going to look for cards that can utilize the tokens effectively. So I want Incarnation cards that match our colors. So Defiled Scripture searches for Incarnation cards, as it is a Cthulhu, but it would require us to have a Fiend, Cthulhu, or Demonic J/Resonator, J/Ruler. And none of our rulers really fit that bill to utilize Defiled Scripture properly. Yeah, it would still search us for a Incarnation card, and it can still let us cycle them. So it's secondary effect where I get to tap and put a Cthulhu from my hand or graveyard at the bottom of the deck and then put more tokens in the field. It's probably the only value we're going to get out of it, due to Garnhelm wanting to shove everything into the graveyard. Mother and Father are always good. So Father's effects just look at the top 4, grab a Cthulhu, and put the rest into the graveyard will help with the depth cards and other finding Cthulhus. Also, if we don't have a J/Resonator on field, he will just put himself into the field. Only applies if we have the Cthulhu, Demonic, or Fiend J/Resonator. But if we have the Moonstart Stone that we will be running with Alice, we can, before that triggers, use the Moonstart Stone to turn our J-Ruler into a Cthulhu, Demonic, or Fiend, and then through that cheat him back into the field. And once Father comes back into the field, we could get Mother back in. So there is a world where we might be able to do something with this. I think his enter effect's the only reason we'll really run him, especially with his incarnation abilities. Especially if we get like a good fish drive to get 6 of them and then just create 2 1/1 fish into Father Dagon. These also helped us to fill out some cards. Nyarlathotep the Usurper's definitely good for this. Some good discard, very cheap and easy to play. Adam Brawley over there for 3. Yeah, we will only ever have Darkness or Water Resonators for him to get rid of, except if we combo him with, where did it go? Defiled Scripture, because Defiled Scripture's second effect, those 1/1 Cthulhu tokens that enter are Omni, so they are one of every color, so we get to pick. So if we tapped Defiled Scripture and sent, say, Father Dagon to the bottom of the deck, and then we get 2 of any color Cthulhus, we can then use Adam Brawley here to go ahead and say, I want one of them to represent green for wind, and then it'll net me back the will, and then water, 1 for water. I can then choose that, or I could do 1 black and 1 wind, so my opponent loses some life, and I get 1 of any color of will back to really sink into other things, because then that 1 of any color of will can then be thrown into Alice to then get other chain reactions here to go. That could be fun. Yog-Sothoth the Dark Myth, destroy all resonators with total 2 or less, is always good, and the fact that he can be spawned in with only 3 darkness resonators out, or 1 dark, 2 fire, we'd really have to look at how fast we could get 3 darkness resonators out, and the real answer to that is 1 darkness, so Malefic Tree Ethereal. We could start the game with Yogg-Sothoth the Dark Myth, who's an 8-drop 15/15 on turn 1, which would really put a target on our back. But that just sounds fun. And a giant beat stick to run. We could run Baki, the Winged Lady. Yeah, so she requires 2 darkness to bring into the field as a 9/9 flyer. That can also tap to give something 9/9, but at the end of that turn, that resonator is destroyed. The interesting thing here is she does not say that it has to be a resonator you control. So if you can target one of your opponent's resonators, and then at the end of the turn, oh no, it's not that it's destroyed. It's when if it is destroyed, it's banished. Yeah, when that resonator is destroyed, this turn banished. She's banished. For a card that came out about 10 years ago, I've definitely barely remembered her effect. Okay. Acolytes of Darkness. If it's banished to Incarnation, we pay 400 life and draw a card. For a 2-drop slot, I just don't think it does enough. All it's going to ever do is be a fodder piece that draws us a card. Where for 2, we have things like Sea Monsters, Bioluminescent Eggs, that's going to get us 3 water/darkness tokens into the field. Oh, no, just water Sea Monster tokens. So the good Adam Brawley fodder, Mother or Father fodder, or 1 Acolyte of Darkness just does not seem to be equivalent here. Since we're leaning very heavily into Cthulhu's, I think it's always good to go ahead and look and see what other options we have to really help this tribal build go in here a little bit. This J/Ruler is always nice, but on her other side, she's light, which makes it very hard to actually run her. Electo, with her updated effects. If this put into a graveyard from the field, she's expelled. This card gains following effects if you control Beatrice, which we do have access to. We'll remove 3 resonators in your graveyard from the game, which we probably will have. Put this from your graveyard. And it wants to be in the graveyard, which we can facilitate. And the fact that she removes them from the game will feed into our Stein's Fragments ability, so we can choose which to get rid of. So Electo can straight up just target 3 darkness resonators. Then we Stein's Fragment them back into the deck that were previously put in there by... And then Electo gets to come onto the field. If we don't have cards in our hand, whenever we draw, our opponent will banish a non-magic, so non-J-Ruler entity. So we get to choose who banishes, and then they have to banish them. If they can't, they discard a card. We will probably just start hitting people, though, that can hit targets, so that we don't really need the discard effect. But this will be a good addition. Unlike when we were working on other decks, the Fire of Titalos, the fact that it could actually get off an effect here could be good. You may pay life if we have, though if we have Typhon out, we cannot pay life. But it can make a token copy of itself. So if we just pay 1x, pay 2, we can then use its other effect to generate another one. No, doesn't seem too bad. It does have Barrier to All Chance, Bane, and Pierce. It's good for the maybe section. The Pack of Hounds with untouchable, so when it's being played, it can't be removed from the chase or destroyed. Inheritance of Fire. The thing is about the Pack of Hounds, it really benefits from having multiple of them. But whenever your opponent draws a card, they lose 300 life. Is probably the only benefit we'll get out of it. And for a 1-drop, if we play it first, our opponent to our next will lose 300. Then the opponent facing us will lose 300. So it's going to take at least deal 600 damage. We're not really running ways to cheat in the guided to the center of the demonic world, sadly. So that's not going to be playable. We're not really running dark spheres to facilitate the crawler. Tisephone's always funny, but we don't have real ways to negate her damage to ourselves. Invisible Terror actually could be valid here, because if we just run out of cards in hand, it's going to cheat itself into the field. And as a 7/7 that we could get for free, especially if Garnhelm dumps him into the graveyard at the end of our opponent's turn, at the end of our neck. So our opponent ends their turn. If they say they're the person clockwise to our left, they're going into the person kitty corner to us that's not our opponent, that's not targeting us, or we're not targeting. At the end of that person's turn, Invisible Terror, if we do not have cards in our hand, would trigger and come into the field. So now the opponent who's targeting us will actually be able to, who could attack us, we do have a blocker for at that point. So that's another cool little combo. Abdul Ahajrid, the Possessed. At the end of turn, destroy all J Resonators with 200 or less attack. Since we are running cards like Alvarez that do stat debuffs, we can always put in some other ones. And he has an Awakening. And because in ABC format, we normally go to when people have a lot longer life. Since we have more life, we always are running to where people have more stones up to use. And with him, with his Awakening, his ability to remove all counters from J/Resonators your opponent controls would not remove their Convoke counters, but like any 1/1 counters or anything like that, they will get rid of. And then it also gives -8 to them. And so at the end of turn, he'll pop a lot of them. And it's J-Resonator your opponent controls as a passive, continuous thing. Yeah. But this is one that you will have to choose an opponent for. Still a very good card. Transformed is just when it enters, your opponent discards a card and loses 400 life. Azathoth, the Manifestation of Death. Draw 2, then discard card. If it was awakened, look at our opponent's hand and remove a card from the game. Very useful card. And with how we're going to be going later into the game, the extra awakening cost isn't really going to be too big of a deal. Otherwise, it's also just a good blocker because it has Bane. Bane, if it deals damage to another J/Resonator, it kills it. Deeper ones. So we can have any number of this card in our deck. And specifically, that comes down to, let's see here. There's a specific deck ruling clause for this. I believe you're allowed to have up to 7 of them. Okay. Anywhere, any. Okay. Players can have 5 copies of these in their deck with anything that can have any number of copies. So we can have up to 5 copy of Deeper Ones, and for each Cthulhu in our graveyard, which could be facilitated rather quickly with Garnhelm here. He's going to quit Deeper Ones gains 200, 200. Search your deck for a Deeper Ones and then reveal it. So Deeper Ones kind of just going to spam out. And if we can, let's have some fun with Deeper Ones. And just get the whole kit and caboodle of 5. Also, Father Dagon, when he enters, can find Deeper Ones for us. The Returnee from Twilight. We can remove 3 Resonators from our graveyard from the game and put them into field. As an 8/8, that actually could be valid. The Spawn of Umar. The fact that we're running so many high-cost Cthulhu's, this really would be a fun way to play it. Let's see if we have room for it. I'll add it in for now. Let's scroll down to the banned list real quick. Is Umar banned? Yes. Sadly. His ability just to cheat in a 1, a 2, and a 3 cost is always just too strong. So the creature from Chaos is a 2/2 with Bane. That's all it has, really, for it. Elder Things could get big. I just think it's too high cost to really be valuable. Deeper Ones does the same thing. Yeah, just not in all graveyards. But Elder Thing... Let's see. The average game probably has like 10 things in graveyard. So it would just be like a 2020, 2024 pretty quickly. Squirmer of the Dark just seems like a death sentence waiting to happen. Shantok. Just a way to keep keeping it into the game and forcing cards into our graveyard. Because the next thing we want to do is definitely add in a lot of Remnant cards. This could be fun. Deeper Ones. Let's see here. We got 13 3+. So if we scroll right on back. Going up here. For 3 or more, we must have at least 10. So we have already hit that. At least 15 2-drops. We have 3 open slots for our 2-drops. We need 10 more 1 cost. So let's remove Cthulhu. Go to Keywords and Remnant. you play this game from outside. So even if it's banished, each player chooses secret. Each player chooses a player secretly. Then those players are revealed. The life of each player that has been chosen more times than any other player or is tied for the most becomes X, where X is the character with the lowest life. And less than 2,000 becomes 2,000. Could be fun. They pay one more. So 2-drop Engrave with Remnant. Quick cast heroes that enter the field. I mean, it's just a fun little board wipe, so let's add that in. This can just save your life. Suya here is counted as a 3-cost as an alternative card because he has his 1-cost up top as his Resonator side and 2 for his spell side. So he's counted as a 3 total cost. Glint of Insight. And you just get to name a card and get rid of your opponent has to discard any copies of it. If you don't have good hand knowledge on your opponent, it's never going to be too good. Einstats is just look at a card, look at the top 2 of your deck, fine. Muse Staring At lets us get rid of people cheating in cards. Okay, a Voice from the Void is quick cast Remnant, draw card. Because we're trying to run a deck that just shoves things into graveyard, that's probably actually going to just net us a card, which is never really that bad. Dance of Shadows is just a fun reanimator card. Space-Time Anomaly is always good. This keeps us alive for a turn. Optional Possession gives a 200 buff and Flying, Precision, or First Strike. The fact that it targets J/Resonator means that we can target something like Beatrice, who has Flying already, and give her Precision so she can target something to remove it, or just give her that 200 pump to swing for lethal damage. The Water Transformation Magic is always a fun little gimmick. Target Resonator, lose all abilities, and becomes a 4/4 bear. So it's something that's actually being detrimental to the board state, you can just get rid of. Forbidden Spell of the Undead Lord lets you just put a Resonator back into your hand and then put a 3 or less into the field from your hand. Really looking at our 3 or lesses, that could be pretty valuable. Because we can use it to grab back any of our big hitters, especially Incarnation cards, and then put a 3 or less into the field, like Malefic Tree Ethereal, and then immediately sacrifice it again. Bit of an expensive play, but it's always a fun idea. We're currently at 51 cards because we have 4 rulers, 16, 3 more, so that's 20. We're at 34 and 51 currently. So we need 3 more 1-drops in that. The Seer in the Coral District is combo banned with the sea monsters, the bioluminescent eggs, but combo bans don't really apply to ABC format. So we would have the ability here to add it in and abuse that combo a little bit, so I think I will. We have Inkita here, who does have Forest Resonance Infinity, which we will have access to. She is a villain with Bane 4/4 as a 1-drop, but if we order her out, we get to banish her and reveal a Darkness Machine we own from outside the game that doesn't share a name. It's revealed. That really doesn't apply, though, for her banish her effect, because we don't have the side deck. That's the problem there. I mean, having a mana dork's never a bad idea. And we're allowed 1 more 1-drop. Black Witch is always very detrimental to people. Shentox's decent, but I think I could get more value out of, like, an Aspiring Diva. Spirit is good, but I do not see Spirit actually being good for this deck because we're cheating so many things in. It would actually probably be detrimental to us. The Statue of Misty Dragon really can save us if someone swings out for lethal. Well, or trying to get a victory crystal, because then we can just destroy it. So they move to go into combat. We activate Statue of Misty Dragon to rest it, and then since we will always have a J/Ruler with Judgment as with the Arcanas, then it will just drop it to 0 and nil die. Or it's a Flicker ability, which will always be good to have in a deck. Lila's always really good because she is ramp in a format where Magic Stone count does matter. Mikage Rhea just lets us dump something into the graveyard right away. Yeah, so like some of our Cthulhu's that actually care about that, like Invisible Terror. Perun could be decent in this, just because she is a token generator. The Dark Zombie Amaryllis is actually always pretty decent to have. It combos with a few of our other 1-drops. Aspiring Diva is very good. Hide Spider could be good, especially when people want to run the Overgrow cards that just keep putting 1/1 counters on everything. We could, with having access to Darkness and Water, we have access to some of the best 1-drops in the game. So I did want to go over the 20 limit just so I can come through and cut it down. So when looking at Rule 202, we are allowed to have at least 15 2-drops, at least 10 3-drops, but we do have to have exactly 20 1-drops. So now I get to look at the 1-drop selection and really just cut it down here, knowing that these are some of the better ones. I think Einstot's, it's good, but it doesn't quite do as much as like Aspiring Diva, because Einstot's going to let us look at the top 2 and put 1 back. We get 1 to hand and the other 2 just go on to bottom of the deck. She also then is more will, so I feel that's more valuable. Voice from the Void does combo with a few of the things we're really running. The Mana Dork just is a Mana Dork. The KO cards, being Remnant and Untouchable, at least for the one that could really save us pretty well. Because the Hook Diagnosis really could save us heavily. Either from someone trying to burn us to death or use a burn ability. Yeah, and just lets us net another draw. Which Voice of the Void's here because it's a draw with Remnant. Confinement. I feel like we have other cards that can do that same thing. Optical Possessions here because it's a buff that can also give flying to some of our rulers and cards that don't have flying. While we're looking at that, might as well throw Mooj Dart into the Stone deck. Anderson deck. Alice in Wonderland. We could run Crystal Glass in Wonderland just to search out Alice. So all that would ever really do is we can tap it, discard a card, then find Alice, and sack it to swap the top card of our deck for another card. Don't think it's worth it because we can always search it out with the Arcana Ruler. Let's see. Cross Punch Recipe. Put the top 4 cards of your deck into their owner's grave. We can use that on ourselves. Just mill 4. But if we really want to mill hard, we run Harvesting Season here to just mill 10. So we got 40. And now we'll have the deck done once we get rid of 2 1-drops. I last second want to add Roamer just because whenever your opponent draws a card, they lose 400. Gives us another life loss draw card in, who always will hit twice pretty much on the field. Especially if someone's doing draw combos that you can really just activate her Inheritance-esque effect to discard herself to do some more damage there. So we gotta get rid of 1/2-drop. And I think that would be Spawn of Umer. Because I kind of... This Garrett has to hit. So we're going to get rid of Spawn of Umer. So whenever a resident we control is destroyed, a lot of the stuff we're doing is banishing our other ones and not really destroying them. So I'm guessing Hide Spider can go. Even if they die because of stat loss, that's dying to rules process, not to their own, to being destroyed. So that wouldn't help us either. Possession, just the one odd card out here that doesn't really fit with the rest. There's the card I always misspell. Add to our 2-drops. Now find one more 2-drop to get rid of. I mean, we can just get rid of one deeper ones and still have good effects here. Last thing left to do is finish up the magic stones. So I want to see all magic stones that are water, special, and darkness. We can run one crown. Let's go ahead and add this one. Just so we can have that extra little bit of draw once we get late game and have 5 cards with types. This does have the void type, where this does not actually have a stone type. The Triumphs have an extra will symbol on them, so cannot be used. Little Red the Pure Stone does not have any attributes on it, so that is always safe to run. Guru's Ballista Sealing Stone is a safe one to run, and it comes with a stat debuff. We will need basic magic stones. Cards like Moonshade that can produce any color, if they did not list the will symbols and instead said any color, they would be safe to run. Like how the Ragnarok Stone does it. Or the Amadeus Crystal here. But because it's a light, we cannot run it. Magic Stone of Rain's always a very good pick, with its ability to make water chants uncancel to where they cannot be canceled. Makes it detrimental to our opponents. Ethereal Moon is very much nice with its 4C effect. Let's go ahead and throw Bloodstone in here, because we do have a Fallen Angel with a God's Art, so we would be able to use that twice by sacrificing it. The Ragnarok Stone says we can get one of any attribute, but does not list the attributes specifically, so it is valid to be played in this format. Same with Magic Stone of Six Ages, but that was banned for this format. Magic Stone of the Blood could be good if it said J Resonator. Or had a Magic Stone type instead of just being a special Magic Stone. I think we should run one of each Darkness and Fire stones, just to guarantee that we'll actually have 5 stones with types. Definitely need to grab Dark Depths. Because if we want to activate this, we need 5. So we got Black Pearl, Crown, Waterstone, Darkstone, and Dark Depths. So we would have exactly 5. And it does not list with different names, so this their natural stones should work, but that would, again, would only be a late game play. Yeah. So we got 21 costs with our Arcana Ruler, 16 2 costs. We got 16 3 or more. Right, and then 4 rulers. So let's just do a quick count again. It's 20, 36, 20. Oh, so we do have 4 open slots. So we can go back at that. And we have 3 cards open. Cannot be 1-drops. Must be 3+ or 2 cost. So definitely want to grab some all-player cards just to really mess up the entire board state for everyone. I'd love to put Therapist in, but we are already out of 1-drop slots. Mystery Box. Now let's have some fun here with some Mystery Box with everything we have in this deck. That would just be funny. Wrong spot to throw Amadeus. That's a little faint and hard to read. So if damage would be dealt to us, it is dealt to him instead, which is always safe. When he enters, our opponent discards 2 cards, so we pick which of our opponents. It costs less for Dark Spheres, which we don't have, but he does have a Revolution effect, so if he's ordered, which we do have Typhon to order, he gains a God's Art, which he is a God's Art Fallen Angel, so that would then trigger the Fallen effect. Put an order card your opponent controls in their ruler area. Remove all residents your opponent controls from the game. Your opponent cannot play cards that share a name with cards removed this way. Players cannot chase this ability. Pretty much that would just be a good way to get rid of your opponent's field as a board wipe. So just an extra little board wipe. So we have 2 card slots open. Evil Elemental Uprising's not that bad. The 4th boon, Last Regrets, seems a little too hard to really get off. If we need a 2-drop to get rid of... We're just going to run Black Moonbeam here. To just destroy target J Ruler. Players cannot chase to it. Quick, easy. Then let's pack in Soul Hunt to make each player, even the one that's not our opponent, have to discard. But sadly, that's a 1-drop. We're out of 1-drop slots. Forgotten Amphitheater's probably a safe pick for the last card here. Okay, so we're at 22. Oh yeah, we went over by 1. Whoops. 36, 56, and 40 with the rulers. Okay, so 60, I mean, yep. So that's all 60 cards plus the ruler. Here it is trying to yell at us about our basic magic stones. Although there are no restrictions for basic magic stones, but with how they have this programmed, it just doesn't really check that. And these are just the banned cards for Wanderer. So I'll definitely be looking into picking this deck up and trying it out, but it might take me a few weeks just to get all the cards in, ordered, and get them all shipped here. But look forward to seeing test runs of this. I should be able to test run this deck on Tabletop Simulator in the coming weeks, or actually get some players together and once I have it physically in my hands, try it on out.